This video is a follow-up video to my one that I shot the other day about 28 different ways that you can glaze a pot. I know there are more than that, but I just tried to give my students a wide variety of options that they could use. So I'm going to show the finished fired examples. If you look in the video description, and also if you look up above, I will go ahead and put a link to the previous video showing how I did all of those techniques, and I'll also put the link in the video description. So hopefully you find this helpful, and just look in the video description for lots of details that I might have on that. So here are the fired results of all 28 of the bowls that I did the other day when I was glazing. So let's start with number one. So number one was the solid dip using tongs, and it was a full dunk. Remember that whenever you're dipping, you dip it in, turn it upside down to allow it to drip off the top. So this one was Coyote Croc Blue. By the way, on these little pieces of paper, I have the timestamp of where that was located on the instructional video of where I did it. The second one is the same color. It's still Croc Blue, but this one, even though it was a solid dip, it wasn't a full dunk. This one was partial. I held it by the edge, dipped it, and then when it dried, I turned it over and dipped the spot that I didn't get. Okay, number three. This one was entirely brushing. So here I brushed the inside with Coyote Lemon Cream Satin, and it has that nice satin texture. And the outside is Coyote Orange. Then the next one is, this was a pour the inside, pour the outside. Now the inside was light Shino. I did that one first, and then the outside was Cactus Green. And truth be told, my Cactus Green was a little bit thicker than it probably should have been, and you can see I have a little spot where it stuck to the patty in the kiln, but that's exactly why we use patties. I will end up by grinding that off, and I do have a video that I'll link up above. If you look, I'll link the grinding video. Okay, this one, number five, this was 2/3 of a dip and 2/3 of a dip. So they're both Shinos. This is steel gray Shino, and then the other one is just Shino. Now you can see that steel gray Shino has kind of a beautiful matte texture to it. So I dipped the steel gray first, and then you can see I dipped it up to there, and then when I dipped the Shino, overlapping it, it just gives a really, really super gorgeous texture. I really like the steel gray Shino and Shino combo. Again, these are Coyote glazes. I should have mentioned that. All of these are Coyote brand, but you can do this really with most brands of glazes. Now this one, I have to admit, this is probably my least favorite out of all of them. The way it turned out, it was a little bit thick. This was wax resist on top of glaze. So I had steel gray Shino as my base glaze, and then I did desert sage on top after I had waxed. So all the designs there, that's actually waxed and everything. I think that might be the first time I actually did steel gray Shino and desert sage as a combo. This next one, number 7, this one is wax on bare clay. So that's the one where I did polka dots, and what you see right there, that's the bare clay, and that is Cedar Shino. This one I think might be my favorite out of all of them with the whole experiment. This is when I did tape on bare clay, and the little round circle there, that was one of those reinforcements, like the sticky reinforcement that you might use on a 3-ring binder. But because this is desert sage, it's like in the Shino family, it has this beautiful breaking brown edge to it. And it has kind of a vapor glaze over the area where it's unglazed. The glaze actually kind of forms a vapor and it seals it there. Next one, this one is pretty cool too. So this is, it was 2 coats of glaze. So this is, again, this is the Shino over steel gray Shino, but this one is where I put tape on it. So you can see all those little lines there, that's where the tape was, but then it was just heavy enough that it kind of made this runny thing. I love that. It kind of looks like mountains. It's pretty cool. Okay, let's see, number 10. This was the one where I did the double dip on the rim with one of the ARCHIES series glazes. In my classroom, I have ARCHIES, I have blue purple, I have red gold, and gunmetal. This particular one is blue purple, and I chose that one because I had a blue bowl. And this is baby blue satin. I think the Archie series are beautiful over lots of different glazes, but I am particularly fond of how they work over the satins because they have just such a really pretty contrast. Now, the one thing that I said in the application video is you never want to do that more than like 1/3 of the height. Like if you dipped the whole thing in the blue purple, as pretty as it might seem, it would run like crazy because seriously, I probably only dipped it like to the top of my thumbnail right there. So it definitely runs. And I deliberately did 2 coats because I wanted it to run a little bit. All right, next one, way over here. This one is where I brushed a blended overlapping of layers. So I have cobalt, really red, and violet. And then on the inside, they didn't blend quite as much as they could have. I probably should have done a few more layers with the wet brush to blend them. Number 12, this one, I refer to this as pouring organically. This was one where I took desert sage and I poured it first, like in the middle section. And then I took blue Shino and I poured in the bottom, again, kind of organically, not trying to have a straight line or anything. And then I turned it upside down and I did pour light Shino on the top. So you get this kind of, I was trying to go for almost like a mountainy kind of, oops, yikes. I was trying to go for a mountainy landscape on that one. So glad I didn't break that. Okay. This was number 13, and this was layering 2 full colors. This one I had dipped it in violet, and when the violet was dry, I dipped it in sapphire. So you get this really kind of cool, you can definitely see the couple layers. You get a richness. It's, you know, it fluctuates between the 2 colors. Because sapphire tends to be a little bit more, it's a celadon, it's more runny, so it kind of breaks over it a little bit more. Okay, number 14. This was dipping with texture. So the texture on the outside has desert sage, but just as a reminder, what I did on the interior was I had poured black first, and then I dipped the whole thing in desert sage. So you can see the big difference between the inside with desert sage over black versus the outside. And I think anytime you put a Shino over texture, and again, I'm talking Coyote Shinos, they are beautiful because it will break brown on any texture. So all the lines right there, that is what happens when it gets a little bit thinner and like on the edge and everything, it breaks brown on the edge. And then another glaze that would be great with texture, these are a celadon. So number 15, this is brushing with texture. I brushed root beer on the inside, and on the outside a sapphire. And if you remember, I talked about 2 coats on heavy texture, 3 coats on smooth. So that's the rule of thumb that I tell my students, brush 3 coats on smooth, 2 on heavy texture. Then this one, number 16, this one was also with celadons, and I think I completely forgot a layer on this because I thought I put key lime on it, but I don't think I did. It doesn't look as good on the bottom. It looks uneven. I think I meant to put key lime. I thought I got it, and then I didn't. So this one has rainy day, peacock, sapphire, and then sapphire poured on the inside. And again, I just brushed like 2 coats because I wanted to make sure that I could see the underglaze carved lines. Oh, and I did put underglaze in those lines, wipe it away first. Okay, Number 17. This one was the carved one where I did put underglaze in the lines, and this one I used a bulb syringe to apply the glaze a little bit more precisely so I didn't get it into the grooves. And then I did show, like, if you do get it in the grooves a little bit, you take a needle tool and scrape it out at the end. Okay. Then next one, 18. This is, again, just demonstrating a Shino over black. If you take any of the Shino family and put it over black, it looks pretty sweet. You get some cool kind of a model effect there, but you don't get a true color that is true to either one of those. You get a great blending. So this one in particular, this is light Shino over black, and it says ARCHIES on the rim. I guess I did that. I don't remember doing it. It doesn't really look like it, maybe, but I assume I did. Okay. Let's see. Then Celadon, just to reiterate, Celadon textures or Celadon glazes are great with textures. So if you wanted to show off like throwing lines or carved texture, Celadons are great for that. This is one dip in root beer, and you can see what happens down there in the bottom. Root beer, kind of when it gets a little thicker and it settles, it has that bluish texture. That is all root beer. That's what happens. Okay, next one, number 20. This is slip trailing. So for this one, I had slip trailed when it was greenware, and then after it was bisque fired, then I rubbed underglaze in around the slip trailing just to kind of show it off a little bit more. Had it been a little bit more pronounced, it would have been easier to see. And then I dipped the whole thing in Dusty Rose. Okay. Then number 21. 21 is demonstrating the luster. Now you can see that the left half of this bowl, this is just the white gloss. The right half is alabaster satin. I use luster on both halves, but obviously I must have put it on a little heavier than I realized because it ran. I honestly have not experienced that before, so apparently it was just a little bit thick in the bottle. I didn't realize I was putting it on a little bit too thick. But I want you to notice the difference. You can see how the satin has a beautiful matte texture with the gold, and then the gloss is like super, super, super reflective and shiny. So you can see the big difference. There's the super reflective, because you can see my phone. And then there's the matte. Okay, number 22. 22 is Mishima. Mishima is the one where I carved. I put slip in the carving all before it was bisqued, and then I scraped it away. Mishima typically works best with a clay body that is not grogged. This is a grogged clay body, so it was a little bit harder to tidy up and clean up. I dipped it in sapphire, and even though it's a full, pretty opaque dip, it's gorgeous how you can see that slip right through it. Like the slip is very, very apparent. It comes through that sapphire. Okay, now number 23. This one I think I actually forgot to show. I forgot to turn the camera on for this. I combined 23 and 24 on the old one. So this was dipped in white, glossy white, and then I just took the regular cobalt blue, just regular glaze, painted over it just to see if I would have sharp details. And I have to admit, I was surprised that I had such crisp details. So that worked pretty well. I didn't think it would. And then the same thing, but on a satin. This is cobalt over baby blue satin. And interestingly enough, I think the details are lost a little bit more. So the gloss definitely had crisper details than the satin. The satin, it's a little bit blurred. Okay, and then I also tried the same thing with this was Coyote Blue, I think it's Blue Pansy underglaze. And even though underglaze is supposed to go underneath the glaze, not on top, I tried putting this on the top. Now, the one thing that I would say, it does have a little bit of a rougher texture in some areas that, say, the cobalt does not. This has a matte feel to it, and I knew when I was doing this that I wouldn't be using this for food. I don't recommend putting underglaze on top of a glaze when you're putting it on the inside that would be in contact with food. On the outside, I wouldn't hesitate. I think it would be fine, but where your food is going to sit, I wouldn't put the underglaze unless it's literally under a glaze. And that was just one coat of the underglaze. Okay. 26, this is Sgraffito. So the Sgraffito, the clear glaze, it must have been a little bit on the thicker side because it has a more of a pink, it has a cloudy quality to it, which I didn't think it was thick, but obviously it must be a little bit. So this is Coyote Red underglaze. I carved it before it was fired. I put the red underglaze on, then I Sgraffito carved it while it was greenware. Then after it was fired, then I dipped it in clear. And after I dipped it in clear, it occurred to me, I thought, oh shoot, I meant to put really red on the inside. So I went ahead and I added a coat of really red. And I just want you to notice how really red in conjunction with the clear, you can see it really kind of just, it thinned out on the edge. It looks pretty cool, but I didn't know what it would do because I don't think I'd ever tried really red over a clear before. All right, 27. 27 is Texas two-step that was dipped. This one was over coffee bean, so you might be able to see it has a slightly brownish look to it. Okay, so this one was over coffee bean. What I did was I dipped the whole thing in coffee bean, then I dipped it in Blue Moon twice, like up to here, and then after that was dry, I dipped it in a marshmallow here, and then again in marshmallow over to here. So just this part had 2 coats of marshmallow. This part in the middle had 2 coats of Blue Moon and 1 coat of marshmallow, and this is 2 coats of Blue Moon. You get more of a pronounced, like the little dots, it's more pronounced when it's a little bit heavier. So, and there's the interior of that one for you as well. So the Texas two-steps, they're pretty cool. I like them a lot. If you look up some people online, I'm going to give a shout out to Sharon Galbraith. She is amazing and does some gorgeous, gorgeous stuff with Texas two-steps. And you can also find some of her work on the Coyote website as well. This is also Texas two-step. I probably should have been a little bit more generous though with it. The Blue Moon definitely looks thin there. I probably just should have done a couple of more coats. This, it likes to be really generous, and then this looks a little bit thick down in there because it actually has a texture. It's not really pitted, it's just a little textured where the bubbles had formed. But Texas two-steps like to be super heavy. Maybe I could have put more on with the underneath glaze, but I think it's the overglaze that is a little bit more important. Okay, so I know this was kind of a long kind of a video here, but this was a really neat experiment for me to do 28 different types of glazing. I've never done this before with my kids. I've shown them just a couple at a time. Hopefully you found this informative. And just as an FYI, if you're interested, when I did the original glazing of these, the whole thing took me like a whole Sunday. I was in shooting. It probably took me 10 hours, and I had 3 hours of actual video footage that I shortened down to about 28 minutes. So it took a lot longer than it looks in the video. So shoot me any questions below if you have any questions. Hit subscribe so you can see some more videos about working with clay, and stay safe, stay healthy, and keep potting if you can.